Thank you so much again for doing this. I really appreciate it. And I've always admired you. I'm super excited about this. So,
Thank you.
to jump in, I guess for those who might not know you, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how your experiences have like influenced your work?
Yes, and I'm really happy and excited to be chatting with you as well. So, my name is Dior Vargas, and I'm a queer Latina feminist mental health activist. I've been doing mental health advocacy for about 8 years, and I'm from New York City. And so, what I do is empower BIPOC and support them by providing education and resources. I try to destigmatize these conversations. And so I started a photo project back in 2014, which was called the People of Color and Mental Illness Photo Project. And so I just wanted to bring the attention to everyone, society in general, that there is a lack of diversity in the media representation of mental illness. And I think that when you don't see yourself, even if it's something that isn't something that you're extremely proud of, but like it just seems like only certain people have the right to experience certain things or are able to really experience like the true humanity of what they're going through. And so I've just been working on that, published a book version of it, both English and Spanish. So a lot of why I do my work is because of my own personal experience. I live with mental illness, and I'm also a suicide attempt survivor. When I was younger, we didn't talk about mental health. It was either viewed as trivial or something that was shameful or just something that would make you look bad. And so I felt like I couldn't share it with anyone. Also, when it comes to growing up in a Latinx family and having immigrant family members, it just feels like there's no time to focus on your mental health because it's just you have to worry about putting food on the table and other priorities like that. So I felt like I couldn't speak for myself, I couldn't advocate for myself, and so I don't want anyone else to feel that way. And so if I can connect with them, validate their experiences, and then also provide that support and resources so they can support themselves, that's mainly why I do this work.
Awesome. Um, when you mentioned about like in your family not really having that space to advocate for yourself and there not really being any conversations about mental health, I really can identify with that. I don't think it's just my family. As like my part of my Black experience, I don't think it's just only me. I do think living in the South also adds to that. But is there like a particular point where you did realize that you needed to like begin advocating for yourself, or like what were those steps to actually taking the time and to actually advocate for yourself? I feel like sometimes the trauma response is to only focus on like helping others, but the idea of giving that to yourself first is kind of an afterthought, at least in my own personal experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're very family oriented and community based. So it just seems like focusing on others is most important. For me, what really made me focus on advocating for myself was when I attempted suicide when I was around 18, and I was hospitalized and placed in psychiatric ward. And so I had been attempting for several years of my life, but nothing ever happened. And so for me, it was a really eye-opening experience, and realizing that there were consequences to this form of coping, which was really unsustainable. And so for me, I just tried to do as much research as possible, just speaking up for myself, expressing what I needed, while also being respectful of my family members, also being prepared. I felt like every time I had to have a mental health conversation, I needed to prep so that I could really give those rebuttals and like express the importance of going to therapy, taking medication, and then also just setting those boundaries, which can be very hard. So I just didn't want to feel miserable all the time. I didn't want to suffer anymore. And I just saw how people in my family never got that support, and they're just not living the quality of life that they deserve.
Mm, mm. That's really good. So I know that you're really passionate about destigmatizing the conversations around mental health. So what would you say is actually the most challenging part of destigmatizing these conversations?
I think generational gaps can be difficult. There are certain ways that people in older generations think about mental health. It's not something that they talked about, and it's really changing drastically nowadays. Also, just the overall shame, regardless of what age you are. I think often it's about how you come across to other people. It's where you can't show your vulnerability. You have to come across as strong and resilient and powerful. And I remember in my book, one of the women had expressed that being a Black woman, you can't show that you don't have it together. And so always making sure that you even physically look prepared and ready to go. And so just having that shame and not feeling like you can really be your true vulnerable self because of just the way that society views emotions and other things like that.
Mhm. I feel like that's kind of a good segue into discussions about microaggressions. Do you remember a moment of finding out what microaggressions were? I feel like for me, I didn't realize I was experiencing microaggressions because I didn't have the languaging for it. Like I didn't even know there was a word for it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any memory of that?
Yeah, I feel like it went from not knowing about it to knowing about it. But yeah, not having the knowledge, but knowing what situations, what words were spoken to me that clearly was something that was ignorant and in some ways disrespectful. So yeah, I can't remember when I finally understood it.
Hmm. Um, so how have you navigated it in like your personal, professional life? And I'm really curious to know, um, have you ever experienced microaggressions maybe related to mental health? I feel like that's something that people don't quite talk about. Mhm.
Yeah, I remember several years ago, I was unemployed for almost a year, and I had a phone interview with a man that worked for the company, and I had been doing my mental health advocacy for a while, and so he had learned about that, and then at one point asked me, "So, do you think you're going to be stable enough to do this job?" And I was it was something that I had never experienced before. And I think I just immediately got on my soapbox and said, I think that's really inappropriate and unprofessional. I'm very doubtful that you would say this to a man. And there's nothing shameful about the work that I do or the experience that I've had. And so I shut that down really, really quickly. Even though I was in a position where I like needed a job, but I was just so upset and angry that he had the audacity to question my capabilities. Yeah.
That's wild. And I feel like that also highlights the kind of complexity. Because you're right. I also don't think he would have said that if you were a man. And I feel like microaggressions really are complex and that they're overlaid across a lot of identities and things like that. That's wild. I honestly don't know what what I would have said. That's honestly such a great response though. So I'm gonna keep that in my mind. Yeah, I think
Great.
a lot of times it feels especially in a situation where you like need that job or it's a power dynamic thing, it does feel hard to kind of speak up about that for yourself or for others. Um, so what does it, I mean, that's a really great example, but do you have any other thoughts on what it looks like to advocate for yourself and others when it comes to microaggressions and even just like mental health overall?
Yeah, I think that it's important to connect with another colleague of color. Let's say it's happening in the workplace. Often I've connected with the other woman of color at my job, and told them about these experiences, and it's very validating because often you're told that you're being too sensitive, a lot of gaslighting, and so to be able to commiserate with another individual and receive that validation and saying, no, you didn't make this up, or no, that was really bad. But then also playing the role of the ally, specifically acknowledging my light skin privilege. And there have been times where there have been things that have been expressed. And so, of course, while asking permission of the person, because people are very capable of defending themselves, but asking them if they didn't feel comfortable bringing it up, that I would be happy to. So using that privilege to support your colleagues or your friends or whatever that is. I also think that often it feels like I'm not even going to say anything because this is just the way things are. And I can understand that often you don't know if it's worth your energy. Am I willing to fight this battle? What are going to be the consequences? Is it worth it? And so just taking care of your mental health by just stopping and acknowledging what you're feeling and validate what you're experiencing, and then figuring out, do I let this go? Do I respond immediately? Do I gather my thoughts and talk about it later? Or do you start racking up and start documenting and then show your receipts and saying this is an actual pattern? So I think it's really up to the person on how they'd like to do that and advocate for themselves. There have also been times where I've asked a white colleague, this was something that was really upsetting. I don't feel comfortable expressing this because I don't want to come across as the problematic, annoying, angry Latina, and so and feisty and all that dramatic stuff. And so asking those individuals, because allyship is a verb, not a noun, and I think people really need to use their privilege to help others and bring more attention to these words, because I know for sure that a lot of white people don't know what microaggressions are. So starting those conversations, much like mental health, just normalizing it, so then you give people the opportunity to change and try to be better people.
Yeah. I think that's so powerful. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. Like I said, I've admired your work and I admire you and everything. And I think this is going to be really helpful for everyone who listens. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to chat with you.
Yeah. I guess my last question would be, where can people find you and keep up to date with what's going on and the projects you're working on?
For sure. So you can reach me at diorvargas.com. I'm on Twitter at Dior Vargas, Instagram, Dior_Vargas. Someone already took that. But yeah, I'm happy to connect with people and maybe they can participate in the photo project. I am so thankful to you because you made the first version of the book look so beautiful and something that I'm extremely proud of. So I know that's not what you asked, but I just wanted to share that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I've really enjoyed working on that book. Zach did an amazing job on the images. So it's really beautiful. I literally still have the copy on my TV stand. Like I have like a little book stack and it's right there always.
Oh, that's awesome.
So cool. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.